Okay. So I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's webinar. My name is John Harris. I'm a member of the Labor and Community Conference Network, as well as the Boston May Day Coalition. Over the past couple of years, working people have been rising up against the employers and their government. We have seen some strikes. Several national mass actions since the beginning of April have mobilized millions of people. Neighborhoods throughout the country have been rising up against Gestapo-like ICE raids, often blatantly illegal, conducted by mass goons who are smashing car windows, invading homes, and kidnapping our neighbors. National Guard troops have occupied U.S. cities against the will of state governors. A fightback movement is emerging. Independent campaigns have gained traction in recent elections, which support working people, challenge the Democratic Party establishment, and oppose the ICE raids and Army occupations. Some are winning elections. Tonight's webinar will address these issues and others, and how we can build a fight-back movement in our communities that can turn back the attacks and win some overall gains and empowerment for working people and the oppressed. Our panelists include Roberto Jimenez Rivera, who is a community organizer supporting anti-racist policy. He will be serving his second term on the City Council in Chelsea, Massachusetts. Lily Benavides, who was a Green Party of New Jersey gubernatorial candidate in the elections just this past November. She has been part of the fight against the raids and deportations, as well as the ongoing campaign against the genocide conducted against Palestinians. Rick Purcell. Rick was elected to the Holyoke, Massachusetts City Council in November. He is a member of Veterans for Peace and had the support of the Western Massachusetts Area Labor Federation. Kshama Sawant, an independent socialist, elected 4 times to the Seattle, Washington City Council. She led the first successful major city fight for a $15 minimum wage. Also, the historic Amazon tax to fund affordable housing. And Breakthrough Renters' Rights wins. She is now running for Congress as an independent socialist on a platform of free health care, national rent control, ending the genocide, and no deportations. I would also encourage folks to put their emails in the chat so that the Labor and Community Conference Network can keep in touch and notify you about future events. So with that, let's get started and welcome Roberto.
All right. Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me today. As John mentioned, my name is Roberto Jimenez Rivera. I am a city councilor in the city of Chelsea, here in Massachusetts. For those of you who are not from Mass, just to give you a quick sense of where we are, where I am. So if you've ever flown into Boston, you have landed in East Boston, and you've probably flown right over Chelsea. Chelsea is the smallest city in Massachusetts by land area. It's only 2 square miles, but we have about 50,000 residents. Census says about 40,000, but we know that there's a whole bunch of people here that we don't count. So we have a lot of folks, really living in very cramped conditions. A lot of immigrants. Chelsea has been really a gateway to immigrants in Massachusetts and really to the whole New England region for over 100 years. We were initially a very, Eastern European Jewish community. I believe at one point we had like the second largest concentration of Jews outside of just New York City. It was New York City and then us in the Northeast. Then after that, we started getting a lot of waves of Puerto Rican immigrants, and so at one point Chelsea was about 2/3 Puerto Rican. And then kind of as immigration from Puerto Rico started going down, and we started seeing a lot more growth from Central America, kind of the composition of Latinos started to change. And so now we're at a place where Chelsea is about 75% Latino, about half of that is still Puerto Ricans, and then the rest is a combination of Salvadoran, Honduran, Guatemalan, and so on and so forth. And so very much an immigrant city, very much a working class community. When COVID hit, we had some of the highest rates in the country, comparable to areas in New York. And that's because our residents are the people who had to go to work, right, in person. They were the people running the hospitals, and not running, administrating the hospitals, really keeping the hospitals running, right? They were the people cleaning the hospitals, working with patients. They were the people making sure that food got to the supermarkets, making sure that the supermarkets were, had food in them for people to buy, right? And so it's a community that has been impacted by sorry, not racial, environmental racism, right? We have ships, planes, cars, you name it, it goes through our city. And so we have the highest rates of asthma in Massachusetts. And so basically, the motto here is, America runs on Duncan, and what I like to say is Massachusetts runs on Chelsea. We make sure that everybody in Massachusetts and really in the rest of New England as well can continue to have the thriving lives that they have in many ways. The road salt for a lot of New England sits in our shores here in Chelsea, so we try to make sure that our roads are safe too. Um, so a little bit about me. I am originally from Puerto Rico. After I graduated high school, I went to the University of Michigan on a scholarship, and after that, I thought that I wanted to do something. I like to tell people that I'm a recovering business student. I went to undergrad business school, and then I realized that I didn't really want to spend my life making money for other people, and I wanted something with a little more purpose. And so I got involved in education first in college access, and later on, I did college admissions for a decade almost. And the more that I did the work, I realized that unless I happened to have a spare $1 billion or two, I was never going to be able to change the systems that made it possible for me to get the higher education that I had gotten, that I was now part of, and seeing how students like myself were not able to reach those places, even though they had the potential, they had the ability. And so, right as I was having this crisis of, what to do with my life, I went to a conference and I heard this city councilwoman from Boston speak, and she said that those closest to the pain should be closest to the power. I later learned that this was Ayanna Pressley, who was running for Congress at the time, and that line really stuck with me, and it led me to decide that I was done with higher education and that I wanted to do something a little more, where people had the power. And so I went to work for the Boston Teachers Union as an organizer for 3 years. During that time, I had my first child, who is now 5, and later on, I kind of decided that I needed something a little more 9 to 5. So I went to work for the Massachusetts Budget and Policy Center. While I was there, I had a second child. So I now have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I think the big thing that happened was after I left, after we got Ayanna elected, I moved to Chelsea, and the people that I had met from Chelsea during the campaign told me that I should run for office and that I should run for school committee. School committee is the school board here in Massachusetts. And I told them, yeah, sure, in a couple of years, I'll definitely be up for that. And they told me, no, you should do it right now, even though you've only been living here for 2 months. I thought they were crazy, but they kept asking me, and so I decided to do it. And I think the most important thing when it comes to campaigning that I can share with people is that somebody who had been living in the city for 2 months, 3 months, deciding to run for office, I was able to top the ticket that year in the election. I got more votes than any other candidate in the election. And that's one because it wasn't a super competitive election for my position, especially. It was just me and somebody who wasn't very liked in the community. But separately, it's because I did not feel like I could go out there and not put in 110% into my campaign and expect people to elect me. So I decided that I was going to knock every single door in the city and talk to as many people as I could. And that's what I did. I didn't have any kids at the time, which really helped, but I spent months just knocking on doors, introducing myself to people, telling them about who I was and what I wanted to do. And I think that that is my biggest takeaway from campaigning in general, and something that, as I have continued to do work as an organizer with labor, with other electoral work, the most important thing that we can do in our work as campaign organizers is knock on doors, talk to people, right? I have a friend. He says that the number one reason that somebody doesn't vote for you is because you didn't ask them to. And then the second reason is that they're not a nice person. And then the third reason is that you're not a nice person. And I think that, oh, sorry. My 1-year-old just walked in. Let me close the door real quick.
Mm.
There we go. Sorry about that. Um, and I think that it's really interesting because I have had Trump voters vote for me. I have had people who have told me to my face, I don't think we agree on anything, but I'm still going to vote for you because you knocked on my door. And I think that just goes to show the importance of being there to listen to people, right? I think when it comes to campaigning, one of the most important things, rule number one, listen. Rule number two, listen. Rule number three, listen. And don't just tell people what they want to hear, right? You have to engage with people. You have to highlight where you might have a disagreement, but then reiterate your shared priorities of helping families thrive, helping children thrive, right? Helping everybody have access to the things that they want and need. And if you're a volunteer, you don't have to know everything about a campaign. You can always pivot back to the talking points and then just say, I don't know the answer to this question, right? But I'm going to have the candidate call you back, and you can have that conversation. But ultimately, engaging with every single person, thinking that you might be able to reach a common ground. And maybe that common ground is they're not going to vote for you. That's totally fine. The second best thing in an electoral campaign that somebody can tell you is that they're not voting for you. Because then you can just move on to the next person, and hopefully you will be able to convince more people than you are not able to convince. Um, and so over the years, so I started off as a school committee member, did that for 4 years. Then we had redistricting in 2020, and our state representative seat opened up. And I think one thing that I have continued to learn over the years is that even though I was an education justice advocate at first I was like, oh, college access, just senior year to college, right? That was my place. And then I realized like, oh, actually, we have to start earlier in high school. We have to do, 9 through 12. And then it's like, actually, we need to start kindergarten. And then it's like, actually, we need to start even before they were born, thinking about their parents and their grandparents and the conditions that they live in. And what are we doing to set children up for success in the future, right? But then that also means that we have to set up their parents and their grandparents and everybody else for up for success. And so I, I I still consider myself an education justice advocate. It's just that at this point, all of these other things impact education so much that we have to address all of it, right? And that's the importance of addressing of having a theory of change that is not narrowly about one issue, but really thinking about our communities as a whole. And so here in Massachusetts, one of the things that's really interesting that is, I think, different in other places. So Massachusetts is made up of 351 municipalities. Chelsea is only 2 square miles, and the state has the power and the money that we as a city don't have. Boston has money, the suburbs have money, we here in Chelsea don't, and yet our needs are so much greater, right? So when we think about the needs of a community, we're often talking about housing, people are getting priced out. And unfortunately, state law does not allow us to do much in terms of holding landlords accountable or stabilizing rents. And then we have this thing called Proposition 2.5, which essentially limits how much we can increase our municipal revenues year over year. We can only grow it by 2.5%. Now, if inflation is lower than that, then it's fine because you're still growing in some way, shape, or form. But if inflation is 7%, then that means that you're effectively losing 4% of that, just to inflation. And so when we have high inflation years, it means that we are not able to keep up. And so we have this conundrum where we can only raise revenues this much, but in order to even just keep operations the same, we need to spend this much. So how are we going to do that? Let alone grow the services that we're providing, right? And especially when we look at our residents and our highly immigrant population, right? And we look at what's happening before Trump, this whole thing started with Trump, right? Their lives were already incredibly challenging, and especially now, so now that they're even more so under attack. And I think that a lot of the work that I have been doing has focused on trying to repair rifts between people who are local, who have disagreements, but overall are extremely value aligned, right? And so what I always say is we can't just continue to fight each other about local issues over municipal budgets that have, 100,000, $1 million, right? When we have state legislators that are dealing with a budget of 60 plus $billion and a federal budget that is even larger than that. I'm not a federal policy person. I thank everybody here who does that, right? I am very much focused on that local and state piece. But ultimately, it's about how do we focus our energy on the places where we can actually have a large impact on our communities, and really thinking about, I have mentioned a couple of times, Chelsea is 2 square miles. We are a sanctuary city. But what does a sanctuary city policy mean when you're only 2 square miles? You're essentially saying that, we're going to protect people with these additional policies in these 2 square miles, but if you cross the street into the next town over, you no longer have those protections. So what we need is state action. And so that's why I have really continued to argue that we need to really prioritize working with the state so that we can have these protections statewide. And then, of course, prove that these protections can work. So then, when we hopefully take back the House and the Senate, we can actually move those policies forward at a national level. But essentially, proving that something can be done municipally is a great way of saying of showing at the state level that it can be done, and then the same when you can do it at the state level. Um, Now, I think when it comes to immigration, I think that one of the really important things here is that I think Chelsea's actually doing a pretty good job in terms of the policies that we've laid out, right? Part of it is we have people in our government who care about immigrants and who believe that the way that we keep our community safer is by ensuring that our community knows and or at least that what we're doing is not collaborating with ICE, right? And collaborating with this administration. However, the administration wants immigrants to think that we are collaborating with them. So they will do everything in their power to make it look like there is 100% collaboration. And so, one of the things that we've been working on very early on in the administration, we had a few arrests of minors. And so the challenge here is that when you arrest someone, standard procedure is that you fingerprint them. And when you fingerprint somebody, it automatically flags the national database. And if they're looking for, whoever this minor might be, they now know that he is at the police station, and then they can just quickly come over. Now, before the current administration took over, there weren't enough ICE agents in the area. So, they might have been in Worcester an hour and a half away. And by the time that they got here, that person was long gone. We don't hold people for immigration reasons, right? So we're just going to go through the process for whatever, if it was a fight, if it was, whatever it might have been. And then we're going to move that person out of the station because we don't hold people for immigration reasons. However, now that there is just like ICE is everywhere, they're 5 minutes away, right? So it creates a circumstance where they are arriving and that person is still there. And so to add to this, another challenge, especially with minors, is that we have to release a minor to a guardian, which means that if you're an adult and we're done with you, then we just let you go, right? Whereas if you are a minor, we have to wait additional time for that adult to come pick you up. And that gives ICE more time to arrive. So what we were thinking is is there a way for us to slow down the process to make sure that we are not fingerprinting people unnecessarily and essentially flagging ICE that this person is here? And so, that's what we have been trying to work on, trying to develop policies and then making sure that we're working with our state attorney general to identify policies that work under the law, that are perfectly legal, that essentially allow us to slow down that process. And another piece here being the state is very important as a partner on this because if we don't engage the state, then it's us as a municipality doing something. If we get sued for it, then we have far fewer resources to defend ourselves and our policy, right? So making sure that we have strong state guidance is going to ultimately make it more helpful for us to do this work locally and also help more municipalities that maybe aren't at the cutting edge, right, also do this type of work. How am I doing on time? Sorry, I have completely lost track of
You
time.
have about 1 minute left.
Great. So really quickly, as I tried to figure out what I could share with you all that would be most useful, I kept going back to the ICE situation and engaging. I've always thought of myself as kind of the go-between between advocates and electeds, right? And I think to me, it's important to help advocates figure out what is your goal. Is your goal to pass a policy, or is your goal to create an organizing opportunity so that you can increase awareness, right? And so, then from the elected side, you can come to a city council meeting and yell at the council. I won't take it personal, but my colleagues might, right? And I think that if what we're trying to do is pass a policy, I want to make sure that I understand what your goals are so that I can then work on my colleagues to make sure that they understand that if you're coming and speaking a little forcefully about something, it's not the advocates aren't coming for you as an elected. They're simply coming at it with passion and making sure that they understand so that they won't just shut you down and then completely disengage, right? And
Uh,
so if it's the first time that you're
I,
engaging, oh, sorry, go ahead. I'm going to stop right there. I'm happy to talk about this more after. I thought I would be less than 15 minutes, but here I am. So anyway, thank you all so much and happy to do Q&A later.
okay, next we have Lily.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lily Benavides. I'm in New Jersey, Morris County. I run, okay. Long story, I'll try to make it short. I ran in New Hampshire for the assembly in 2000 at the end of 2006. And I served for one term. And that time, it was under the Democrats, and I'm sorry about that. That was only a coincidence, okay? I wasn't really involved with them. And I really can't say how I won this because they were not expecting me to win. I was just a token and I ended up winning, so they didn't know what to do with me. And the first thing I did, because I was already working in volunteer with immigrant rights groups, it was to make a law very, very similar to the one we are trying to pass here in New Jersey, the Immigrant Trust Act, um, and which is basically to prohibit police to collaborate with ICE. And that was 18 years ago. I became enemy number one of everyone, including the Democratic Party. Okay, so my life at the state was miserable. They did everything they could to get rid of me. Anyways, I moved back to New Jersey, that's where I was originally, and for a while I didn't get involved in anything. Not just because of the whole disappointment, but because I had some health issues, and then back in probably 2008, 9, no, more like 10. I got involved again in immigrant groups, in volunteering. And then I met a couple of people that were with the Green Party of New Jersey. And I started going to the meetings and I stayed with the Green Party. I always wanted to no other parties. I was always asking about that because I found it very strange that in this country there were no more parties. Um, I'm coming from Colombia, and even though we are a third world country, we have a bunch of parties. So, and they have official positions. So that was kind of strange for me, and I was always asking about that. And then I found these two people, and I ended up joining the Green Party of New Jersey, and that was 9 years ago. I have been co-chair, and I'm the chair of the finance committee and co-chair again. I'm also one of the co-chairs of the Latinx Caucus National. And I ran 3 years ago for Board of Education, obviously locally. Um, then last year I ran for Congress against Mikey Sherrill, which is the one that just won for governor these elections. And this that was last year. We had 13 people running, 12 for assembly and one for Senate. And most of us got the same votes, approximately, between 4,500 and 5,000, and we couldn't we we couldn't elect anyone. They have made it very difficult for us in New Jersey, and they close all the doors on us all the time. Right after the election, they doubled the amount of signatures, thinking about this coming year, right? And then so this year, there was another person running for governor, but he had some serious health issues, and he ended up quitting, and I took his place. I was going to run for lieutenant governor, so I I stepped up to run for governor, and we had to collect the signatures again. We had 4,000 for him, but New Jersey is one of the only states that cannot replace a candidate, so we had to collect the signatures again. We got about 2,500. And by the time we were waiting for the approval, we got a court date by Zoom. So we were in court for 3 days. They were challenging us, and it was terrible. They went after they were trying to find any way to get rid of me before they print out of the ballot. So they tried saying that any signature collector could not be from another state other than New Jersey. But they were not sure about that because the Division of Elections never said a word about it, and everyone here have used people from other states to collect signatures. So if that was the case, then we will go and make sure that all the other signatures from before were invalid. So the judge didn't want to go that way. Instead, they went through the signatures one by one. They committed a lot of irregularities. And basically, the way I see it is that of us, the Greens in New Jersey see it is that it was based on racial profiling. So they chose all the signatures of people with foreign names that had that were difficult to spell, that had two names. They forgot one name out or one letter. Doesn't matter. All of them, 500 people were out. So that took me under 2,000 signatures, which it was the requirement. So I was out. And we decided to go with the writing campaign. And we still don't know the numbers because they don't post the writings names except a couple counties. And we are doing an Oprah request in every county. We have 21 counties to see if we get the actual number. What else? Okay, we are involving everything that I guess everyone here is. We are always rallying for Palestine. I go to all these rallies and actions. I am in a group at the port trying to organize the port workers. And there's weekly events everywhere. There's a lot of groups here for Palestine. And for ICE, there's a lot of groups working and supporting immigrants. And we have a dire line, which anyone can call and ask for help if someone was detained, or if they see ICE somewhere, and they can say where they are and what they are doing and all that. And we are still campaigning for the Immigrant Trust Act. There was a resolution in 2018, and it's been there all this time, and there's a bill, the same exact bill as the resolution. It's been in Trenton for 2 years, and they don't want to pass it. Every time they say they're going to pass it. So in elections, we had two candidates, the Democrat, not sure, saying one day that she would pass it and the next day that she won't. And then the Republican, which was a mini Trump, that obviously was not going to pass that. And it's still not passing. By the way, tomorrow we are going to be in Trenton basically all morning, trying to talk to legislators and stuff about this. Okay. What else? What else am I doing? I keep forgetting. So there's a special election now because the congressman is the one that just won for the to become the governor, and she just left her position. Is vacant now, so it's going to be a special election. I'm going to be putting my name out for that. which I have to get certain amount of signatures, and then the elections will be in April. In April. So we will see. And we are also campaigning for ranked choice voting. And the resolution has passed in many cities now, and now it's a bill at the state. And Green Party is always collaborating and supporting that. Yeah. I think I thought I was going to talk more than 15 minutes, but probably not. And okay, that's it.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you very much, Lily. And yes, so we'll move on now to Rick. Rick Purcell. It's time for you to begin. Let me see. Where's Rick? There you are, Rick.
We cannot hear you. I think your headphones might be
Yeah, Rick, we cannot hear you.
Now?
because you're off mute, but
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Is it all right?
go ahead.
Can you hear me? Good, thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm Rick Purcell. I live in Holyoke. It's a town just like Chelsea. We both have our two veteran soldiers' homes are competing for the money that the state gives out to us. We're a population of 39,000, 51% Hispanic, mostly Boricua, and per capita, we have the highest amount of Puerto Ricans outside of the island in Massachusetts or in the United States. We're the second highest population of Boricuas in the United States outside of the island. We have a lot of Dominicans. Like I said, half our population is 51% Hispanic. I just ran for city council in Ward 4, Barrio Cuatro, and I won. This is not my first time running for city council in Holyoke. We're a very, very poor city. We were at once one of the poorest cities per capita in Massachusetts. I think we've risen up to third or fourth now, so we're doing something right a little bit. The first time I ran for city council was in 2007, and the guy I ran against just got unseated from city council. We unseated him. He was a crazy maniac lawyer that we're happy to get rid of. In 2009, I ran for city council again, and in the same ward, but against a different candidate. And I lost that one too. In 2010, I was Jill Stein's running mate with the Green Rainbow Party. I'm a member of the Green Rainbow Party. I was Jill Stein ran for governor. I was her running mate for lieutenant governor. 2012 was my last time running for city council. I ran at large, and I just went back to my regular day job. And I worked at our major medical center here in Springfield, the Bay State Medical Center, for 29 years. Prior to all that, I was in the Army, and after Desert Storm, I got out. I seen what war does to people, and I said, I don't want to have any part of that. And I was active duty in the Army for 10 years. Fast forward to retirement from Bay State Medical Center, which I've been retired for the last couple of years. Our current city council, Cocaine Givner, and her name is Cocaine. And I asked her mother why she named her daughter Cocaine. And she said, because she liked Eric Clapton's song. So anyway, we all call her Coco here. And she decided she didn't want to run because she wants to start a business. And the whole neighborhood was looking for somebody to run. And they knew, everybody knows me because I've been an activist and organizer in Holyoke for the last 30 years. They asked me if I would run, and I'm retired, so I have more time on my hands, and I know what campaigning is about and all the things you do and the things you don't do. And I ran, and I knocked on, we have 4,000 residents in our ward, and I probably knocked on 3,999 doors. And if I didn't get you, then I left you a door hanger. And I ran against a guy that was picked to run against Coco. I wasn't even in the picture yet. Our conservative bloc goes, this is their third election doing it, goes into the Hispanic community, finds somebody with an Hispanic last name, and runs them for office so that they can control our city council. And I was screaming at the top of my lungs, this is racist, this is racist, stop this nonsense. I said, well, if we can't stop, then the only thing we can do is beat them. And I ran for Ward 4 this last election, and I won in a landslide. In my previous elections, I couldn't get above 30%. This time, we won by 65%. I had 65% of the vote. So I'm like I said, I'm an activist and organizer in Holyoke for the last 30 years. I belong to groups like Nuestras Raíces, which means our roots. It's a local organization that does community gardening, and we have a 30-acre community farm, 30-acre finca here in Holyoke. I'm a member of Neighbor to Neighbor. I'm a former board member of Energia. It's an energy company that does winterization and home energy audits. I'm a former board member of, I am a current board member of Wellspring in Springfield, Massachusetts. They have a community greenhouse and they grow lettuce in there with immigrant workers. And they have offshoots of that. And one of them is the Community Land Trust. I'm on the board of the Community Land Trust. It's called the Lower Valley Community Land Trust here in Holyoke. We just made a bid on a building for $1 million to buy the building and rehab it and turn it into a co-op business incubator. Where am I? Yeah, ICE. Let's talk about ICE. So we're a community of half Hispanic, and I want to say one of the reasons I won this election, also one of the good reasons I ran, is because I had a really great organizer, and his name is Donald Trump. He cut off a lot of our money and our funding from the federal government because we were proclaimed a sanctuary city. Our mayor said we're not a sanctuary city. Everybody said we weren't a sanctuary city, but our conservative bloc here decided they were going to do a resolution to get the money back, saying that we welcome ICE to come to Holyoke. And that's what I mean by organizing. So once they did that, we said not only no, but hell no. And every Thursday we had ICE protests in Holyoke on a very, very, very busy main street here, one of our main streets. Every Thursday we did protests there, ICE protest. And ICE never came to Holyoke. And we were saying, well, even if they did come to Holyoke, how are they going to tell if our city's half Hispanic? Who's who? Boricuas are American citizens. And if you look at a Boricua and you look at a Dominican, you can't tell the difference. So what are you going to do? Harass everybody because of the color of their skin? We said, well, that's not going to work. To make a long story shorter, I called Donald Trump a great organizer. It's because of these two MAGA former city councilors who we just ousted. So we went from a 7-6 majority to a 10-3 majority, and we're progressive now on the city council because we ousted the two that they recruited to run against us progressives, and we ousted two of the MAGA people that were on there. So we gained 4 seats on the city council, and we have a progressive majority so that we can actually get stuff done now without the obstruction, without MAGA, and no do taxes. If we're going to do a 5-cent meal tax or anything like that, the progressives say no taxes. And we're a poor city. We need money whatever way we can get it. And with the threats of the federal government saying we're shutting you guys down and all that, and we finally just got our funding back because we have a city that hasn't reconciled its books in 5 years. So the state was threatening to cut off our money because we haven't reconciled our books, and we couldn't do it because of the conservative branch of our city council kept blocking any attempts for us to get our accounting set straight. But now that's all over with because we got rid of the faction. We're going to straighten out our city government and start getting our funding back. The state just said, we're going to send you your free cash funds now, and we'll be able to pass everything the mayor needs to get our accounting back in order. So when I ran for city council, of course, I was endorsed by the mayor. I was endorsed by the last 4 Latina city councilors that filled the seat that I just filled. And except for Cocaine, she's BIPOC. So the last 4 females that ran for city council in this ward endorsed my campaign. And we ousted the MAGA people on our city council. We'll be actually get stuff done. Just look at your little agenda here. The Army occupations, and as you heard, I'm a veteran for peace. I served in the Army for 10 years active duty. I seen what Desert Storm does to people. I worked in air evacuation. We air evacuated them from the battlefield to the Big Birds and flew them back to Kona, Europe, and then to the United States. And I seen what war does to people, and that's what made me get out of the Army. I didn't want to be any part of that scene anymore. And I've been an activist in Holyoke. And we had actually a counter protest on this Veterans Day in front of City Hall. And it was veterans from progressive socialists and all different progressive groups that showed up. And I was one of the keynote speakers at that, saying how, well, I'm not going to say it here because we're in a very public meeting. Some people might be religious, but they asked me about war, and I dropped the F-bomb a few times with the war behind it. So to make a long story short, just to get a little more into it, the other challenges that my city is facing are of course financial because of our accounting system. We hope to get that done. Currently organizing a lot of. I belong to Neighbor to Neighbor. I belong to another Chestnut Community Alliance. These are all, but mainly Puerto Rican groups that work in the state of Massachusetts. Well, the Chestnut Community Alliance is in Holyoke. They live in, and they're actually part of the ward that I live in. So I'm organizing all these Hispanic groups. And the guy I ran against, the reason his platform was that he was bilingual when he went to church. So, and I'm not bilingual completely, but I speak enough Spanish where if I speak broken Spanish and you speak broken English, we'll figure it out. And si se puede. We can figure it out, and we do get it done. But all these groups, I'm organizing these groups now so that when I go to the get on city council, I get sworn in January 5th, and I'm organizing these groups like Neighbor to Neighbor and the Chestnut Community Alliance and all the other little organizations like Nuestras Raíces. And when I say we're going to show up at City Hall to get something done, I want all these other organizations that I've been a part of for 30 years to show up with me and say, this is what the people want. And we got a progressive city council now, so they will listen to the city council. They won't sit there and debate us for 20 minutes and 30 minutes, an hour, days, move it to table the order or whatever. We'll get it done ASAP when we fill up the city council chambers like we have been doing. When ICE started threatening us, we filled up city council chambers for public comment, and we spoke. And that's how I'm going to face the city council now, is we're going to show up, organized, and ready to tell the mayor and tell the rest of the city what we want and how we're going to get it. And this is what we're going to do. That's pretty much, I think I might have hit all of your challenges. Our challenges is that we're a poor community and we need the money. And I think that's pretty much me. I have a background that goes all the way back to when I was 14 years old. I came to Massachusetts in 1974 on a Greyhound bus by myself. So I've looked adversity in the face and said, and I was in the military too. So I'm not afraid to back down. And the politicians now know they try to quiet me. They try to shut me down, and it never worked, and it never will work. And I was told that when I walk into chambers, they were telling Coco that I need to learn how to talk while I'm in chambers. And I told Coco to go back to them and tell them to go themselves. And that's from Rick. I'm not gonna swear in city council. I promise you, I'm not gonna swear in city council. I'm gonna try not to swear, and I'll give it my best shot. But every once in a while, it'll come out when the bloodshot and the neck veins start popping out. That's pretty much it. And also, I just want to say good luck to Andrea James, who's on this call too. She's running for office in the state of Massachusetts, and we want Andrea James, but we want to endorse Rick Purcell endorses Andrea James. And I see a lot of other Massachusetts, like David Kyle and Maureen Doyle. Thank you guys from Massachusetts. Si se puede.
Okay, well, thank you, Rick. Next in line is Kshama. So let's go for it.
Thanks. I'm sure people heard, but if not, then on Wednesday this week, the US House voted to authorize a gruesome $900+ billion for weapons and war through the 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDAA. This nearly $1 trillion in blood money for military contractors was approved proudly by Democrats and Republicans with broad bipartisan support in the midst of the continuing Holocaust in Gaza and the threat of war in Venezuela. And also this bill containing many measures, a lot of funds for Trump to continue to carry out his horrific agenda against the immigrant community. In fact, perhaps the most horrifying and scandalous aspect of the House NDAA this week is that it explicitly opposes any embargo on military aid to Israel, and not just by the US, but shockingly by any other country. And as I mentioned, it's also an attack on the immigrant community because the NDAA also stipulates massive funding to further intensify the militarization at the California-Mexico border. Clearly, anyone signing on to the NDAA should be going on trial for war crimes. So who did vote for it? It's no surprise that my opponent, the genocidal Democratic Congress member Adam Smith, voted for it. In fact, he championed it. Smith has voted for tens of billions of dollars for the genocide in Gaza. He also voted to ban United States funding for United Nations food assistance to Gaza. He also voted to create ICE and voted to fund ICE, but he is far from the only Democrat who has done these horrible things. Democrats like Hakeem Jeffries and even Jasmine Crockett, they all voted for funding the genocide in Gaza. And in total, 197 Republicans and 115 Democrats voted to approve the House NDAA this week. And it is just absolutely shameful that 74% of the House voted for this bill, while tens of millions of American working people and their families are barely scraping by. Working people desperately need money for healthcare, jobs, education, a lightning fast transition to clean energy, and a massive expansion of affordable housing. Not one more penny should be spent on imperialist war or genocide. And I think the bottom line, the very bare minimum bottom line, and I want to come to this point in a second, but the very bare minimum bottom line, if we're going to fight for working people in any honest way, it has to be independent politics, meaning independent of the Democrats and Republicans. And this event is titled as Independent Politics. And I'm really surprised to hear speakers here talking about how when we, it's a quote, we take back the House and Senate. What does that mean? We obviously mean is referring to the Democrats, and I completely reject this idea that somehow all we have to do is get one more Democrat elected. Our job is the exact opposite. We have to point out the complete fallacy and betrayal in this idea of, let's just get one more Democrat elected. Let's get one more Democrat elected. And then when the Democrats have the majority, they'll do something. No, they're not. Look at what happened. Obama had the presidency and the Democrats had a majority in the House and Senate. Then Biden had the presidency and the Democrats had a majority in the House and Senate. So in other words, it's called a trifecta. When you have the executive and both branches of the legislature, the Democrats had a trifecta 4 years in recent years, and they refused to do anything. What did they do instead with that time that they had where they had the trifecta? They refused to allow universal health care or even a strong public option. Not only that, they also failed. Biden and the Democrats failed to even do the bare minimum, which is make the ACA tax credits permanent. They refuse to do that. And now here we are. And we are all supposed to believe that it's just the Republicans doing it. The problem is, of course, the Republicans are horrible, but that's, it's much more obvious. Both Democrats and Republicans are owned lock, stock, and barrel by the billionaire class. Both are parties of genocide. They are both funded by billionaires. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, my opponent Adam Smith, and many other Democrats, too numerous to name here, have received campaign donations. For example, from Palantir CEO Alexander Karp. I'm just using his name because it's so clear that if you are tied to Alexander Karp, what are you tied to? The Asian Times described Karp as the guy who is building the operating system for perpetual war. It is a grim reminder. Palantir and its donations are a grim reminder of how both the Republican and the Democratic parties loyally serve and are richly rewarded by the billionaire class. So how we fight back? First of all, we urgently need militant mass movements, and militant means independent of the parties of the billionaires. So we need independent militant mass movements, including mass strikes and civil disobedience, if we are to win an end to all U.S. military aid to Israel, to end the genocide and occupation of Palestinian lands, to stop war on Venezuela, to stop the deportations, and to shut down ICE. We need more general strikes, such as the one carried out recently by the Italian working class against the Gaza genocide. And understanding the role of the Democratic Party as a party of capitalism is absolutely crucial. If our leaders don't understand that, they are not going to serve us. They are going to sell us out. And that also means we have to be clear-eyed about the role that progressive Democrats play. Progressive Democrats don't serve the working class. They perform the task of whitewashing the crimes of their billionaire-owned party and its role in war, genocide, deportations, and relentless attacks on the living standards of working and poor people. More and more self-proclaimed progressives have gotten elected in the Democratic Party since I won my first Seattle City Council election back in 2013. Including the so-called squad in the U.S. House and the over 250 Democratic Socialists of America candidates elected into the Democratic Party. And yet, despite all those numbers, they have won working people nothing close to the victories we have won in Seattle with just one independent socialist city council office. As the Seattle Times, no fan of ours, said, with one elected office, we commandeered the city's political agenda. Look at the progressive Democrats in the U.S. Congress. They have won nothing of substance. And this is true for other electeds around the country as well. But I'm just using the Congress example because it's so clear. No universal health care, no taxes on Wall Street, no rent control, no cancellation of student or medical debt, no end to the military aid to Israel and the genocide in Gaza. They have not even done so much as raise the minimum wage, federal minimum wage, after saying that they support $15 an hour. All these years later, the federal minimum wage is still an absolutely disgraceful $7.25, and the tip minimum wage is just over $2. I think, again, the bottom line has to be independent of the Democrats and Republicans. We need independent politics, and we need independent fighting election campaigns like ours here, both the campaigns we ran in Seattle and the one we're running now for the U.S. Congress, as a way, as a step forward to build a mass party for the working class. And it's not enough to be independent in name. Bernie Sanders is independent, but he has completely, in name, but he has completely capitulated to the Democratic Party. And there are others who have been elected as independent, but they are, they're generally irrelevant. They have not actually done what we need to do. What we need is to be independent, but not just remain independent in name, but use your election campaigns. And if you win, use your elected office to organize the working class into a fighting force. So that is what's needed. And even though the city council positions are nonpartisan in name, we should not accept that. We should understand, like, for example, in Seattle, yeah, it's nonpartisan. The positions are nonpartisan, but every single one of them is a Democratic Party politician, except for me, who was independent. So if you look at the track record of my fellow revolutionary socialists and my Seattle City Council, it stands in stark contrast to all of this. Within the first 6 months of taking office in January 2014, we had won the nation's highest minimum wage. Seattle's minimum wage is going up from $9.19 an hour in January 2015 to $21.30 an hour in January of next year, in a few weeks, an increase of over 131%. And because we won this victory, it propelled victories across the nation for substantial minimum wage increases, in many cases above $15 an hour, and tens of millions of American working people have made gains because of the victory we won here. As I said, the city council was and always has been the Democratic Party. I used our election campaign as a vehicle for demands like raising the minimum wage, taxing the rich, and winning renters' rights. And when we took office in 2014, and I deliberately use the pronoun we because we're fighting, that's what presents the threat. We fight together as working people. When we took office, not a single Democrat was willing to vote yes. And then by the time we had the vote in early June, we forced every single one of them to vote yes. In 2020, we won the Amazon tax, which raises hundreds of millions of dollars annually from the city's wealthiest businesses to fund affordable housing. So yes, it is possible to defeat Jeff Bezos and Amazon even on their home turf. We won a slew of renters' rights victories by overcoming vicious opposition from corporate landlords. We ended the celebration of Columbus Day and ushered in Indigenous Peoples Day. We increased, after winning the Amazon tax, we further increased it to fund $20 million every year for mental health services for Seattle public school students, for affordable housing specifically for Black working class and poor people. So there was a really strong program of reparations, and we won free abortion funded by increasing the Amazon tax. And one of the last things we did before I left office in December 2023 was we passed a ceasefire resolution demanding an end to the genocide. We won all of this precisely because we did not put our faith in the utterly failed strategy of trying to reform the Democratic Party, or for that matter, Republican Party, and trying to win over these politicians through moral persuasion. No, these politicians represent the agenda of the billionaires, and I strongly disagree with this idea that working people need to engage in civility politics. Oh, like, don't ask angrily in public comment, be nice to the politicians who are selling you out. And we have to absolutely reject this idea that any progressive politician will, you just have to talk to them and they will do the wheeling and dealing behind the scenes and then they'll get you something. No, that strategy has never worked for us. The reason we won was because we threw that rule book out the window. We refused to accept this civility politics, which is wielded as a weapon by the ruling class and their politicians. And we instead used our office. We turned our office outwards and started organizing working class people from day one. In fact, we used our election campaign itself to start organizing. We didn't wait to win the elected office. And just to give you a sense of how we accomplished this and why that was a threat to the ruling class, is that the ruling class, the billionaires, the multimillionaires, all the people who represent them, they don't fear just one person. What they fear is the might of an organized working class. So what we did was when we organized working people, it became a real threat, because what we had people do is come to public comment, also hold protests and rallies, but come to public comment and say, we demand that you do this, and if you don't, then you don't get to call yourself progressive and you need to be thrown out. So giving them the threat of their losing their political reputation. And one of the lead corporate landlord lobbyists, he said publicly that they lost. The corporate landlord lobby was unable to win when we were on the city council for 10 years. And he credited that to what he called, it's a quote, Sawant's army. And what that means is that I alone was not a threat, but that because I used our office to organize working people, that became a threat to the ruling class, because it put a price tag for the Democrats. They don't get to call themselves progressive and sell us out. So, when they say, oh, I agree with you, we need this renters' rights, or we need the Amazon tax, but, we can't do it now. We need a robust study to be done. This is not the right time, or can you be nice, don't be mean. We absolutely refuse to accept that. We named and shamed all the people who were trying to sell us out. And that pressure created a counter threat. They feel the threat from the big business people. The politicians are afraid of them, but we have to make them afraid of working class people. That is the basis on which we won these victories. That is the basis on which we won 4 elections and left city council undefeated. And we launched Worker Strike Back nationally to take on big business on the same basis. And there's a lot to share about how we are actually also winning through worker strike back. But I just wanted to end by saying that this type of fighting strategy is desperately needed in the U.S. Congress. We should not fall into this trap of thinking that we just need. Certainly, we should not fall into the trap of thinking we just need to elect more Democrats. That is proven to be a completely failed strategy. You're leading working people down the garden path if you say that. But it's also not a question of accumulating independent in name elected offices. That doesn't work. We need fighters. We don't need progressives accumulated in number. We need fighters. And even with one or two or few fighters, we can completely change the political landscape, because that fighting strategy means you organize tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of workers. That is what we need. I have pledged that if elected to the U.S. Congress, I'm running as a revolutionary socialist. So, if I'm elected, then it will be the first ever revolutionary socialist elected to the U.S. Congress. It will be a political earthquake. I have pledged that if elected, I will use the same fighting strategy to launch a class war on a national scale against the billionaire class and their political representatives, in the Democratic and Republican parties. I have pledged that I will turn my congressional inauguration into a mass rally of 10,000 people in Washington, D.C. We are demanding an end to all U.S. military funding to Israel and an end to the occupation of Palestinian lands. We're fighting to win free healthcare for all, funded by taxing the rich, national rent control, and a massive expansion of publicly owned affordable housing. We're also fighting for a national $25 an hour minimum wage, which should be at least $30 an hour in big cities. And of course, we're fighting to stop the deportations and to shut down ICE and the detention centers. I hope you will join our campaign. This is a national campaign. It doesn't matter where you live. We have supporters and donors in all 50 states and in Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. It will take thousands of working people getting active to win this election, but it's possible to do. And then we can turn politics upside down in Washington, D.C. and defeat the billionaire class. Solidarity.
Thank you. Thank you, Kshama.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move now. And actually, she made 15 minutes. We're going to move now to the questions and comments section. That's going to be facilitated by Samantha Hull. Samantha is an organizer and activist from Colorado, and she's also a member of the Green Party. So I'll turn it over to Samantha.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Samantha. I'm a member of the LCC. I'm a national delegate for the Green Party of the United States, and I'm co-founder of Emerald City International, where we advocate and teach decentralization, mutual aid, and our socialist roots. I do want to open the floor to questions for anybody participating. Please raise your hand if you'd like to ask any questions to any of the panelists. I'm going to ask one starting question that was dropped in the chat about minutes ago, and then we'll move on to the hands. The question from TN Siders was, did you participate in the No Kings events? Why or why not? And Roberto, would you like to answer first?
Sure. I attended, I believe, I forget which of the protests specifically that was. I attended just because, when people gather for, fighting back against fascism, that's, I think, a good thing in general. But, I'm not involved in any of the organizing around that. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
Kshama, did you participate or advocate for the No Kings events?
Yes, I personally participated, but also Workers Strike Back, my organization, and our campaign for the U.S. Congress. All of these entities we organized together to participate in the No Kings protest, both of the ones that happened. And we did that in multiple cities. Obviously, our biggest contingent was in Seattle, but we also organized in other cities where Workers Strike Back members are there. But I just wanted to say on the No Kings, it is not, I don't think the question should be only about did you participate, because we also have to understand the character of the protest. We wholeheartedly not only participated ourselves, but we mobilized people into it. But what we did was we marched as a contingent, and we called it the End the Genocide contingent. So we urged people that if you want to fight to end the genocide, march alongside us. Obviously, it was a combined march. But the reason we did that was because we were pointing out to people that look at what's happening. I mean, you have millions of people marching in what became one of the largest single-day protests in U.S. history, and yet absolutely nothing came out of it. Why? Because that was done. I mean, ordinary people were marching actually to win something, actually to fight back. People, tens of millions of people nationally are, hungry for a fight back. But the No Kings protests were organized by the Democratic Party and their operatives, and it was simply a release valve. They know people are angry, and so they just want people to march, but without absolutely any fight back. And the only message there was, you vote blue in the midterms, and we completely reject that. So we spoke openly about it. And we also, I just wanted to note one last thing is that what was incredible, just absolutely shamefully incredible, is that in the first No Kings protest, the Democratic Party speakers, including Pramila Jayapal, who spoke here, Congress member, they did not mention Palestine and the genocide at all. And the reason they did not, of course, is that, the genocide started under Biden and the Democrats' leadership. And so they don't want to give voice to that at all. But when we talk to thousands of people in the crowd, people are angry. And so we need independent organizing by working class people.
Thank you. Lily, did you want to answer the question?
Yeah. The very last one I went, it was near here and I had friends coming, and absolutely they are part of one of the groups that I go with to support Palestine every week. They do a rally every week, every Sunday. So we went bringing the Palestinian flag and, wearing the kafiyas and all that. And I think if we counted 5 people wearing kafiyas or with Palestine flag, that was it. And it was a good thing. It was in a park, and we were right by the front where they were bringing some special guests, some political guys, from the Democrat Party. And someone came and told us to, like lower the flag because it was a huge flag, right? And when they started talking, I couldn't. It's such a brainwash thing, and everybody was clapping, and I'm like, oh, I just can't see this. I went out to the side block, and it was a good thing because I had some good conversations with people out there that were protesting that.
Oh, I
So
thought you were
it was a
from
good thing. Yeah. And
Thank
that
you,
was it.
Lily.
And I don't think I'm coming back to that. Yeah.
I've heard a lot of the people who had experiences with pro pallies getting kicked out of some of the meetups for No Kings. Richard, did you want to answer?
Yeah, I participated in both of them, and I feel like I kind of feel like Kshama felt about it. It's more of the same old bullshit. So we have to stand up and fight back, and that doesn't mean one of the main reasons when I heard about the No Kings protest was, can you imagine that current occupant of the White House as a king in our nation? Can you imagine that? He's not even a good president. Can you imagine him as a king? I mean, just like, that's why I showed up. But I mean, I agree. It was more of the same old. And I mean, I marched in New York City and Washington, D.C. for climate protests, two of the biggest ones in the world, And so I participated in that. And look where that got us. This crazy bastard in the White House thinks climate change is a hoax. So yeah,
it's a fucking world war with the fucking Russians and Chinese.
Yeah, I mean it's a big collusion course for nowhere land. That's crazy. Yeah, I did, but I don't say it proudly.
Thank you, Richard. Maureen, can you mute your mic? There's a lot of feedback coming through. I don't know who had their hand up first. I think is it Andres?
Yes, hello. Good evening.
Can you introduce yourself and then ask your question?
Sure. My name is Andres Ginete. I'm running for council, not for council, for congressional seat, New Jersey, District 12. I had no incumbent, so I'm part of Green Party of New Jersey. I'm a dues paying member of Workers Strike Back, DSA, and I'm in like rapid response groups. So I wanted to ask my question. I had two questions for Kshama. I know, for example, like when you had your recall election, I understand. I heard a testimony that they were saying, "Oh, these socialists, they knew how many votes to get, where to go. They had a very good read of on the ground and whatever." My question for you is strategically, how do you put together your plan? How do you understand where to go and how to spend our limited resources and energy most effectively to turn out the voters that will respond to our issues? And my second question for you, Kshama, is what channel can I reach out? I mean, I'm a member of Workers Strike Back for maybe like an endorsement or something. We're champions of your approach here. We think that we need an oppositional approach. I've used it locally. I've driven a wedge between in the local parties and the public, and you alienate the parties, but then you win the public, and then they stop talking to you, and then they go back and talk to you because you got the public. So I've seen that approach work, and so those are my two questions for you, Kshama.
Yes, that last point that you said, Andres, is very important, which is that our starting point cannot be, or our priority, it can never be something that we aim for, which is trying to keep good relations with the what I would call gatekeepers, the Democratic Party politicians, including the progressives, much of the labor leadership, unfortunately, much of the NGO leadership, they're all playing a gatekeeping role against the movement. And so our goal should be to serve working class people, not to curry favor with these misleaders or gatekeepers. Those are the correct words for them. And as you indicated, when we build real momentum by organizing working class people and pose a real threat to the establishment, that is when, I mean, these establishment leaders will never agree with us, but they are forced to concede because of the power of organized workforce. That is our job. Our job is to organize working people to make them make our collective ourselves into a serious threat to the ruling class. And part of how we did it, for example, in the Tax Amazon movement and also in the 15 Now campaign, for the minimum wage, was that alongside organizing working class people, having a really defiant naming and shaming approach in public comment, rejecting civility politics, all of that, we also launched a ballot initiative each time. At that moment, that was a strategic component of what we did. And for example, in the Tax Amazon movement, we collected 30,000 signatures for our ballot initiative. It became a credible threat, and it forced the city council and the billionaires who really were viciously opposed to the Amazon tax, it forced them to concede because it had real legs. This campaign had real legs, and we were going to go to the ballot if they didn't pass it on the city council. So that's part of the strategy. As far as for election campaigns, to elect a candidate, we are extremely strategic, yes, but it's not some technocratic solutions. It is politics. It's always political analysis is what's our best guide. And the reason we have been effective in the past is because our North Star is not trying to convince the people who hate us or who don't agree with our approach or all of that. Obviously, we have to win over even people who disagree with us initially. Of course, that's very important. But that's not our starting point. The starting point is to go to the working class, the mass of the working class as a whole, because they do agree with us. The main problem we face is that they don't know our campaign exists. They don't know that we're running. So that's the main thing. So we focus our energies of canvassing in working class neighborhoods. We also rely a lot on tabling. We obviously go door knocking, of course, but we also do a lot of tabling, meaning having a campaign table at the light rail station, outside grocery stores, at music festivals, at No Kings, everywhere where we can talk to hundreds of people in 1 hour, with our canvassers there. That really builds, not only, lets thousands of people know about our campaign and then they talk to their family and friends. We also give them concrete tasks. When people come and sign, yeah, I want Kshama Sawant on the ballot, we don't leave it at that. We absolutely have an aggressive strategy for fundraising because it's a working class campaign. We don't take any money from corporations. I mean, they wouldn't give it to us anyway because we are their mortal enemy. But the point is that this is a working class campaign. And so we have to be very serious about fundraising. And so that creates a real ownership. Working class people make real sacrifices for this campaign to run. And so they feel invested in it. That's very important to get them invested in it. And then we also give them concrete things. Can you show up to the next canvassing drive? Can you show up for a phone banking session? Can you go out postering with us? Can you talk to 5 family and friends about this campaign? Can you host a house party? And so we have a very diligent and systematic approach to canvassing. And then also I'll say that by tabling in public, we also create a buzz for the campaign. So more and more people find out about it. And of course, there's a lot more to share. So if you want to reach out, Andres, definitely, if you haven't already, email us at solidarity@workersstrikeback.org. And also the organizers of this event have my personal contact information. So if you want to shoot me a WhatsApp message, that's also fine. And I also urge people to go to our campaign website, which is Kshama Sawant, my full name, kshamasawant.org. And I just wanted to apologize. I have another Zoom meeting to get to, and I might have to leave in the next couple of minutes. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Connie, do you have a question for the panelists?
Yeah, actually a question and a comment. I work pretty regularly with an organization called LSIP, Labor and Community for an Independent Party. And one of the things that we advocate for in terms of organizing the Labor Party, because that's our focus. Our focus is organizing the base for the Labor Party. We are not the Labor Party, but we do consider ourselves organizers to organize a base for the Labor Party. And our organizing strategy consists of basically 2 points. One is very much it's building these local, what we call labor community coalitions or assemblies. And they're basically built on like an activity or event strategy of organizing. So you organize in your community around the things that you're already doing. Like if there's a campaign that's building in your area and you're supporting that and you're working with the group, for example, the people who have spoken here, then you basically organize around that and try to build an ongoing labor community type coalition that will become a base in your area for what would be the Labor Party. Then number 2, building caucuses or organizing caucuses within unions that specifically target within that union a clean break with the Democratic Party. I totally agree with what Kshama was saying with reference to a break with the Democratic Party, a clean break. We don't work with the Democratic Party. We don't advocate for them. We don't think that they do not represent the working class at all, and never have. So, there's no reason for us to even consider them. We have to build an independent campaigns, an independent political party. My question, after saying that, my question was to Roberto when I was listening to him. He kept saying we, and I wanted to know who we is. I was a little confused with reference to not only what Roberto was saying when he would say we, but some of the other people. I think the only person who specifically that I remember said anything about an actual party that they belong to or an organization with reference to their campaign was Lily and Kshama. I wasn't sure, Robert and Rick, I wasn't really sure, who their we was, who do they represent? I mean, yeah, it's nice to say, yeah, I represent, the community, or I represent the working class, but is there an organization? Is there organizing behind your campaign? Like, what Kshama talked about in terms of organizing the people around your campaign so that you actually have a constituency. You know, I mean, instead of just sort of being an independent candidate that that just sort of says, yeah, I represent this or that community, when there's no actual organizing behind it. So that was my question, really, is who is we? And then also, what is your perspective on an independent, mass-based working class political party? Some people call them workers' party. And how would you build a base? I mean, that may be like a long discussion kind of thing. I'm not suggesting that, but at least if you could give me an idea, Rob, all of the candidates, all of the speakers, who is your we? That is, who are you organizing, and who supports your campaign in terms of an organized effort? And then what is your perspective, or what is your comment on building an independent, mass-based working class political party?
May I go first?
Go ahead, Rick.
I'm a member of the Green Rainbow Party. That's the Green Party in Massachusetts. I was a co-chair of that organization on the state level. I was a state co-chair, and I was the chapter co-chair here in Holyoke, Massachusetts, and Western Massachusetts, the chapter in Western Massachusetts. I never used the word we. I stated the organizations that helped me with my campaign. They are neighbor to neighbor, and I can look up their logo, and you can neighbor to neighbor Massachusetts, and you can see who they are, because altogether we are one unit. Nuestras Raíces, that means our roots. It's another organization here in the city I live in, and they're a great organization. You can look up their website. They also help me. I am an independent candidate for people, planet, and peace. There's no we in that. My pronouns are he and him, and that's that. You won't have me say we did this, we did that. We all will do that as an organization to all the organizations that I belong to. I've been an organizer and an activist in this city for 30 years. And trust me when I say I only go to the organizations that are helping the marginalized people of the city I live in. And we're one of the poorest cities per capita in the state of Massachusetts. So you can say the word we if you say all of us are fighting like hell and fighting back against the corporate warmongers. That's it. That's it from Rick. Thank you. Sorry if you interpreted my statement as being we.
I can go next.
Thank you, Rick. Roberto?
Yeah, I think, when I say we, especially when I say we will take back the house, I mean we the people who don't stand for the current terrorizing of communities like mine. If that includes Democrats in addition to independents, then so be it, because it sure as hell is not going to include Republicans. Right. And I think that, like, ultimately, when I ran for state rep, people, who interviewed me for DSA asked me, would you be willing to run as a socialist? I said no, because that would put me in a worse position to get elected, because I don't know about you guys, but if I go out into my very Latino community and start telling people that I'm a socialist, that's going to be received very differently than if I'm out knocking in the doors of Somerville and Cambridge, where people have a very different understanding of what that means. We have a lot of DSA folks over there. So what I tell people is, I don't identify as a socialist. I don't identify as a capitalist. All of these terms mean different things based on who is saying it and who's receiving it. What I identify with are policies. I identify with making sure that people have access to affordable housing that they're not going to lose just because their landlord decided to raise their rent, 500 months in a year over a year. I'm in favor of making sure that people have quality education that they don't have to pay for, because it should be free from, pre-K all the way up to higher education. I think, I align myself with policies that are going to make life better for the families in my community. And ultimately, I'm not here today because I'm running for anything, right? I just got elected, right? I'm here because I want you all to be successful. And for better or for worse, the people that we just elected are the people that we have for the next 2 years. And this is certainly different in places that have more competitive elections, but in places like Chelsea, we often don't even have people who are engaged enough to be willing to run, right? So I've had seats where literally nobody is willing to run, and me and my wife are out there trying to get, you know, anybody who is a basic, decent human being to decide that they're willing to do this. And so I think if no one is paying attention, then the problem isn't the gatekeepers, it's the apathy. And so part of the work that we have to do in communities like mine is educating people about what it is that is even possible. What can government do for me, right? These things look extremely different at different levels of government, and people have lost far too much trust in the power of government to make our lives better. And I wish that I could be at a place where that doesn't need to be what I spend my time on. And I wish I could be spending the time, actually moving the needle on these policies at a national level. But unfortunately, where we are in this community is people just want somebody that they can trust who is going to fight for them and who is going to listen to them. And so that's what I mean when I say we. We is the people who want better, and the people who ultimately support. When it's a campaign time, right? It's the people who will support me as a spokesperson for them. But when it's not a campaign to get me elected, then it's about the we that's going to come together and actually fight for what we need. Because that's like if you're not even willing to pick up the phone and make a few phone calls, then do you actually care? And so that to me is we need to get people to understand that the people in power want you to feel helpless. And in order for us to get over that, right, it's going to mean that we have to work with people who we don't have full agreement on, because that is how we are going to get some people elected, and then prove to people that when we actually get some people elected, we might actually be able to do something. And if we are able to do a little thing, we can then prove to more people that, hey, government can work, right? And if we continue to do that, right, then we can continue to do bigger and better. Whereas Joe Biden gets elected, a bunch of promises had been made, promises are now not kept. Now, even more people lose their trust in the power of government, right? So either don't make the promises, because then you're going to have to break them, or keep your promises. And I think that it's important that people see that. And at a municipal level, like I am, it is a lot easier to be in touch with a larger percentage of the electorate to make sure that they understand, why decisions are made, why I maybe disagree with them on something, right? Joe Biden isn't going to go door knocking, across, 300 million doors, right? But so it's a lot harder at that point, right? It's, even in a congressional district. But I think that's the piece that's really important to me, is making sure that advocates understand how they are going to be received, to figure out, are you going to make an organizing are you here to create an organizing opportunity, or are you here to move some policy right now? The timelines are different, and it's ultimately about what is it as organizers that we want, and as electeds, how can we best support that in some way, shape, or form?
Thank you so much, Roberto. Elizabeth, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, one thing has always bothered me on the left, and that is everybody is running on their own. And so to me, like the people who spoke today, do you know each other? Is there some way that you can be coordinated and we can have something coordinated nationwide? Such and such is running for city council, someone is, et cetera, so that people can be supportive. And I understand that when you're in a small city council, as compared to running for a state or even a national election, it's different. But because certainly we may not agree on everything, but we definitely agree on not being a Democrat, or of course not a Republican. And in order to kind of push a third party, it seems to me that we have to be together. And I guess that's whether people want to comment on that, is it possible? Anyway, that's my question. Thank you.
I just have just one
First.
sentence in reply to that. Just my question to you back is the goal to create a third party, or is the goal to move policies that we want? And I think
Both.
the answer might be different.
Both. Yeah. Okay.
I got a one word comment. John right here to organize this meeting right here. He brought us together.
Right. Yeah.
Lily, did you want to answer or comment on Elizabeth's take?
Yeah, I think it would be great if we get in touch and, share how we do things, what are we doing, and, support each other, of course. And I think the Green Party in general tries to do that as much as we can, right? But it's not easy, but we try. Yeah.
Thank you, Lily. John, I think you had a question before David, or you had your
Yeah,
hand up for a second there.
I had my hand up and I accidentally lowered it. I lean more on the social movement side of things. I don't really campaign for candidates much, but I have a question for the panelists. Uh, and I like clear demands as well, and I want to know where the panelists stand on the social movement that my organization came out of. It was a social movement that called for the general strike on May 1st, 2006. This mobilized several million people across the country. There were 1 million people in Los Angeles alone. And the main demand for that mobilization and general strike was for immediate permanent residence for all undocumented immigrants. And in my view, I think a lot of people share this. The Democratic Party killed that movement. They won both houses of Congress, and that demand then disappeared, and they took over and squashed it. you know. So I think, if we can get 1 million people, millions of people 19 years ago, we can do it again, quite frankly. It was a call for amnesty, which meant immediate legal permanent residence for all undocumented immigrants. I want to know where all the panelists stand on that. And I know Kshama had to leave, but I'm going to be raising that with her as well. Thank you.
Does anybody want to go first?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm
Lily?
happy. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Lily.
You want to know where we stand with the undocumented? What would we do? That's what you
No,
want to
I
know?
think he's asking, do you support an organized mass general strike to demand basically demand that undocumented immigrants be made citizens?
Oh, green
Okay.
card.
Huh? Green card.
Immediate green cards for all the
Right,
undocumented.
right. Okay. A general strike? Yeah, and we should have done that like I don't know how many years ago, but anyways, okay. But specifically about that, I don't know. My point, my stance on immigration is that we have to totally dismantle the immigration system and do it all over again because I don't think none of whatever they do works because they only do it for profits. They don't care about people and they don't have any specific criteria for anything that they do. Is like this one can get this and the other one doesn't. That's what they do because they only do it for money. Immigrants that are doing processes of migration, all they see is the sign of dollars on the forefront. That's it. There's no compassion. There's no humanity. I don't believe in anything that they do on the immigration system. So I do not think that I would work. That's just my opinion, right? So yeah.
Thank you, Lily. Roberto?
Yeah, my undocumented constituents and every undocumented person, that I have met, they're some of the hardest working people that I've ever met. They're working to feed their families, and they pay taxes into a system that is never going to give them a cent back. So I think we should just treat people as people. And I think, we need to make sure that all of them have access to a green card and a pathway to citizenship today. And I do agree, right, that our current immigration system is not working. And I think that we have to figure out ways to create more and better pathways to citizenship. And I think that, one of the things that the Trump administration is doing is essentially limiting immigration to this country, which is putting us in a worse position than we were before they started doing this, because our population is going to keep dropping. And if we don't have more population growth, we're going to stagnate, and that's going to have economic repercussions all over the place. So, yeah, green cards for
Thank
all.
you. Rick, did you have any comments?
Green cards for all, a pathway to citizenship for all. No human being is illegal. And if I hear another fucking person say they're an alien, they will get punched in the fucking nose right in front of me. They're not aliens, they're human beings. Treat them like that. Aliens are some sci-fi fiction person. These are human beings we're talking about. And they came a long ways to be a part of this, what we call America. And what are they getting for it? What are they getting for it? It's terrible. Our immigration system here is bad, and it's made worse by that fascist in the White House. Thank you. Sorry to swear. I couldn't
That's
hold
all
that.
right. Thank you, Rick. John, if you end up editing this recording for YouTube, I think that clip right there of Rick needs to be the opener.
And I think
David.
just real quick, the other thing is we need to stop using undocumented people as political pawns on both sides. I think that Republicans are using them as pawns, who are taking their jobs, and there's leeches on the system. But then we also have people on the other side, right, using them as like, oh, these are the people who like will just do the jobs that good old Americans won't do. And we need to make sure that people have dignity in their work as well, which is why we also need to continue to work with the labor movement to make sure that all these people have access to high quality wages, high quality benefits, because at the end of the day, somebody has to pick up, all the vegetables and the fruit. And if it's going to be them, then we need to make sure that they're getting paid just as well as it would be if it was any one of us doing it as well.
Yeah, I hear you, Roberto. It's like we don't want to hear the liberal comments like the Kelly Osbourne clip from years ago where she was on The View and said, "Who's going to clean your toilets, Mr. Trump?" David?
Thank you, Samantha. I want to raise again the question that Elizabeth asked, which was, how are we going to get our diverse groups together? I want to hear more on that. And I want to suggest an answer, which is that we can get together nearly every week by participating together in the protests and by advocating protests that are more and more massive and that are independent of the two parties. And one thing these protests can be about is war, and the other one is deportations. At least we've got two big issues that unite all of us and that we can work on. And I think we have to remember that when we run for office and win, we are not going to be able to make the necessary changes. We are not going to be able to stop war or deportations unless we have masses of people in the streets behind us. What the Democrats can be blamed for is not calling people into the streets, even to defend the Democrats against Trump's arrest threats, not to mention the deportations. If we are elected, will have to go into the streets. We will have to call people into the streets. And we might as well start now by working together to do that. I'm not seeing enough of that in either of the main groups that I'm working with. I won't name them, but I believe that this Labor and Community Network is one way that we can get the groups to work together to call people into the streets to stop this war in the Caribbean and to stop the deportations and raids.
I'll go first. So David, I've been to protests with you in Boston, and I've been to protests with a lot of organizations. Some people call me to do keynote speaking for them, and they're not. None of them are MAGA. None of them are conservative groups. They're all radical groups that don't get invited to many places. So they just said, well, let's get Rick. And I joined them in these efforts. And I agree. When we fight, we win. All that is good. And the key word I use, the key phrase I say in the city that I live in, that's half Hispanic, is si se puede. Yes, we can. We can do it together. Si se puede. And we all have to be that. We all have to be that beaming light. We have to be what we've been waiting for in order for us to take back our government. That's all.
Did anyone else have comments for David?
I want to just comment on what he commented. Is there some kind of group, or it could be a email list of everyone running as an independent? So do you, the people we had today, do you know each other? Do you have any kind of connection? And although I know that you all live in different communities, but we all have the same idea or ideas. Now, I think that if there could be some kind of group or organization to get the people together in a sense of, oh, such and such is running, so you're putting that out to everyone. I didn't know these people until I came here. And I'm sure the other people probably didn't know them either. And I'm sure there are other people throughout the country that are doing the same thing, but we don't know about them. So can we have some kind of clearinghouse or something that we could get all these people on? And so if you're running or you're doing a demonstration in your little community, you let everybody know about it.
Yeah.
That's my comment.
Did anyone have any follow-up for Elizabeth's comments or no?
Yeah, I could respond to that. Make up my
Okay.
hand.
Why
Yeah,
don't you respond to Elizabeth, and then I know we probably need to wrap up the Q&A portion. So thank you, everybody.
well, you're in charge, and Connie's after me. But anyway, I think one thing about tonight, we don't have identical views on all this. And I'm not just talking about the panelists, but all of us who participate. I think if we just had, everybody in agreement and one perspective, we're all preaching to the choir and so forth. So, I appreciate that we have a diversity of views that we can debate, and debate will get us somewhere. In my view, the social movement, the left movement in this country is very backward. That there's not a mass social movement around clear principled demands. And guess what? Amnesty, permanent residence was won in 1986 under the Reagan administration. There were people who picketed the ICE or the migrant offices all over the country, and they were raising hell. And under Ronald Reagan, okay, they passed an amnesty law, and everybody got their green cards. So I hope nobody tells me that this is just pie in the sky shit. All right. And millions did mobilize around this demand. But the left movement in this country is not willing to press forward with that demand. If everybody gets their green card, then guess what? The raids stop. That's what happened. All right. And that's what people, in particular, that's what people mobilized around in 2006. And it wasn't just the general strike on May 1st. Close to 1 million people mobilized in Los Angeles on March 25th of that year, and 500,000 mobilized in Chicago on March 10th. So this was a massive social movement that's been written out of history, and the leaders of that have been written out of history. And my claim is that the Democratic Party was the culprit here, all right, for writing these people. They were independents. Anyway, I'm pontificating here. All I'm saying is, if we had a mass social movement that was mobilized around clear principled demands, I think we could get somewhere the way we have in the past. But that's absent today. You know, each left group, well, not all the left groups, but they don't want to work together, and each one thinks they're the vanguard, and everybody's just going to fall in line like a bunch of tin soldiers behind them. That's not the way mass movements are organized. You have conferences with hundreds, sometimes thousands of people that call actions around principled demands on a particular day on a weekend where working class folks can actually get there. I don't see that happening, except, you know, you go to No Kings, you don't, it doesn't mean a hell of a lot, really, quite frankly. And I agree with the other people that were addressing this issue. Sure, I won't address it longer, but we got to get back to that, in my opinion. Over.
I wanted to sort of make a comment after what was the lady's name? Was it Elizabeth?
Yes.
The one who asked about just okay, yeah. From what I remember, at least two of them are in the same party. They're in the Green Party. Assuming I don't know a lot about the Green Party structure, but I know that I thought I remembered Lily saying that she was Green Party New Jersey, and then Richard said he was in the Rainbow Green Party. I don't know if that's the same thing as the Green Party USA or whatever, but at least those two people are in the same organization. And maybe the people can continue to stay in contact with this group and with others by allowing their email or some email address that they do interact with to participate on this listserv that goes out from the group that sponsored this.
May I say something? May I say something? Hello?
Samantha, you're in charge.
Sorry, yes. Sorry, go ahead, Ray.
So I got to meet Roberto from Chelsea, Massachusetts today. I got to meet Lily from New Jersey, and I got to meet Kshama from Seattle. And those are Kshama. Everybody knew about Kshama because she was national. That was a movement that was and still going. So if you didn't know about Kshama before today, then I don't know what rock you were hiding under. But she was national with her stuff. But now I know Roberto, and Roberto, si se puede, brother, and Lily too.
Samantha, can I say something real quick?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I just want to clarify. It's not that I don't want anyone to have a green card. I want all of them to be citizens, like in a month. That would be amazing, you know. But I think you had the answer at the end with what you said. We don't have leaders. We don't have true leaders. Okay, and we have all these groups and even Latinos and people of color that are siding with Trump. And I'm not saying that the other party is better, but if you see what ICE is doing in front of our eyes, how can you agree with that? So I don't know how we can bring that people on this side. I find it very difficult. But again, the whole system and all the systems are corrupt, and some of them, we just have to get rid of them.
Okay.
So that's what I tried to say. Okay, thank you.
Samantha, I just want to encourage people to put their email in the chat. That's all. Put your email there, message everyone, and we can, we save the chat and we'll be able to get a hold of you later. That's all.
Yep, and absolutely. And I had put in the chat also, once you're on the list, if you're not on there yet, I know Elizabeth was talking about, creating a list of all these different candidates. If we have people active on the list and suggesting candidates they're learning about, or if they're running themselves, we can create files, things to reference for people in this group to be able to look for, to know who's running where and for what party, or if they're running independent and for what office.
Good idea.
Did we want to go ahead, and I know we're kind of cutting it close there. Do we want to give the candidates that are the panelists that are still here the opportunity to go ahead and give their closing statements?
Yeah, how about 3 minutes each?
All right, sounds good. Lily, you want to go first?
You're
You're
muted.
muted, Lily.
You're on mute.
I'm sorry. Okay. I'm grateful for you guys to invite me to this, and it's awesome that we have all these people. Wow, yeah. And it's good to know that I think we all, kind of have the same principles, right? So we need to grow these circles and 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 get together even for by Zoom, and share and work together and do projects or whatever we want to work on, even if we are on different states. That's the way that we can unite. And I'm not a political person as one of those people running. I'm an activist. I will always be an activist. So if I'm running, it's because I really want to. Anything that I run for is because I really want to help the people. And I'm putting my information on the chat. Thank you.
Thank
Go
you, Lily.
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
Roberto.
Rick.
Want me to go? I want Roberto to go.
Sure.
Okay,
No,
go
there
ahead,
you
Roberto.
go. So I think what I always think about is each of us has access to the same 24 hours in each day. And there's a lot more work that needs to be done than there are people today willing to do it. And, I talked earlier about my journey in learning that college access wasn't going to be it just by itself, right? And having to learn about, the ever-growing list of things that needs to be addressed. Um, so to that, I just say, don't let the overwhelming amount of work that there is to do lead you to stop acting. Some people are going to be more focused on the things that we need today, and some people are going to be more focused on the things that we are going to be able to accomplish in the long term. Both of those things are important parts of the work, and we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think being happy for incremental progress doesn't mean that you stop organizing for the big systemic change that we need, but also being focused on the big systemic change doesn't mean that we can't work on things in the in between and that we can't be happy for the incremental progress and the changes, the positive changes that it can have on people. Um, Otherwise, if we just let ourselves be consumed by the pit of despair of, things are never going to change, we're just encouraging ourselves to spiral. And I'm sorry, but I just refuse to organize without being able to center joy every once in a while. So, keep organizing, but also if you have incremental wins, celebrate those wins because that will also lead more people to want to do this, right? Those of us who are here are ready today, but there's a whole lot more people that are not ready today. And it's going to take positive energy to get them back into the fold and to get them to organize. So I just want to, if there's anything that you can take away from today, people will far more often mobilize for a positive vision than they are for a negative vision. So instead of talking about how awful things are, talk about what it can be. And that will ultimately mobilize far more people because people are willing to work for something that they can visualize far more than they are willing to work for something that, oh, well, this is bad. It's like, well, that doesn't, it could be worse. And so I think that's really important. And so for as much as I don't trust in the systems and the powers that be right now, I believe and I have optimism that it can be changed. And that's what keeps me doing this work. The day that I stop believing it is the day that I stop doing it. And that's what I encourage you all to do.
I'll go
Thank
next.
you. Go ahead.
So I believe in environmental justice, social justice, economic justice, and racial justice, and climate justice. I think that might be environmental. So we'll just add an extra one. And all those justices, and I kind of agree with what John said about a social, general strike. If the system is failing us and we have no other resort, then maybe we have to shut the fucking thing down. You know what I mean? It just has to happen. Sometime there comes a point when we stand up and fight back, and all we do is get the same old from the people that are in control. People know who I am in the city that I live in, and they knew that I was a progressive, and they knew that I've been called socialist and every communist and everything you can call it a person, and I still won. So call me what you want, but my only concern is to pick up the marginalized people in my city that I live in, and my main position is to make my city a better for all, the greater good. No corporation is going to buy this candidate. They've already put the conservative people have said that I'm a puppet and that I'm a rubber stamp. I haven't made one vote yet. I haven't even got sworn in yet. And they're already putting tags on me, which is fine. Because the people I'm working with, like the groups like Neighbor to Neighbor and Nueces Raices and the Chestnut Community Alliance, these are all organizations that do nothing but help the marginalized citizens in my city. And that's who I stand with. And when we show up at City Hall, when we have something that we want to get done, like a tenant rights office, is the first thing we're going to get done. Then after that, since we got the rent control is going to be on the ballot in Massachusetts, when that gets passed, and I help collect signatures for that, just like I did for all the other stuff. We had a resolution already passed in our city council for Medicare for all. So healthcare should be a human right. Education should be a human right. So many other things should be human rights. Education, healthcare, all these things that aren't human rights, I want them to be human rights. And if you don't like that, then find somebody to run against me, because I stand with the people. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rick. John, did you want me to close us out, or do you want to take care of that?
Why don't you close it out, Samantha?
All right, put me on the spot, why don't you? I know that a lot of people, Roberto did leave while Rick was talking. He had to put his kid to bed. But for Rick and Lily, I want to give you a gracious thank you for spending the last 2 hours with us and answering questions. And everyone else who attended, thanks for coming in and listening to the panelists and asking questions. We're going to try, I believe we're going to try to make this a regular thing. We're going to try to have more webinars. You know, we do have major elections coming up next year. So we're going to try to get as many candidates and people who are already in office and people who previously ran successfully and do some more webinars. So make sure, if you haven't already, that you drop your email in the chat so we can get you on the listserv and you can help support us and help grow this movement we're building. And that's all. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
There's
Don't let the snow get you guys.
There's emails going into the chat, so I'm going to wait a minute maybe.
Put mine in now, John.
Chance. Yeah, the emails are coming in the chat, a couple. I'll just, maybe if we could just wait another minute to give folks a chance, and then we'll wrap it up. Well, we are wrapping it up, actually.
Yeah. We'll stick around for a minute or two to collect emails, so.
Yeah. Well, I think we generated some debate. Let
was
me
good.
see.
It was
Yeah,
good.
let's see. Yeah, they're coming in because we do want to stay in touch. We want to keep these discussions going. And yeah, there's another email. See, in our last webinar, we didn't do enough collecting of emails, and that's why I was trying to emphasize that this time around. There's Rick. We got your email.
That's Rick's okay, not Rick's sock.
Well, yeah, we got Laolin and Andres. That's good. You know, Lily there. Roberto put his email in, and
I
I'm
think
not.
we need to talk about to Andres about being a panelist on one of our webinars since it was news to me he's running for Congress in New
Oh, he just
Jersey.
announced it. And
Yeah.
we haven't vetted him yet. We are probably going to do it next week.
Oh, you haven't vetted him? You better get vetted.
Yeah.
Get vetted.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Okay.
Good
Yeah, I
night.
think we got.
Good night.
Yeah, any more emails here? We just got another Joff. All right, that's cool.
I think
It's enough.
what's that?
I
It's
said
for now,
Joff.
Jeff. Jeff.
Oh, okay.
Jeff, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Hi,
Sorry.
Jeff.
Hello.
TN, you're collecting these emails, right?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna collect them all.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I've
get
been
the chat.
copying them.
Okay.
Okay,
Who should I
heading
send
out.
them to?
Feel free to go, Lily. You're fine to go.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah,
Who should I
Nevin,
send them to?
you can send them to me, but I already have the chat. You know, when I sign off, a text file pops up, and I save the chat, and then I go through that and collect all the emails. Okay, so I
Well, he
think we're
could,
done.
if he's already copied them, he could probably just send them all to you in an email so you don't have to go through the chat.
Well, we'll see. One way or the other. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna head out, guys. Thank you. I think we did okay. It was all right. All right.
Thank you, Samantha.
Good
Yeah,
night.
what? Good night. I'm going to end the meeting for all. As the admin, that's my job, I guess. So end the meeting for all. Good night, all, and thank you so much for participating.